Hello, everyone. Let's get started with another Catalan game analysis. Um, so this is again a 30-minute game. I'm playing as white against an opponent who is slightly underrated than I am, but it's more or less on the equal footing. Um, just want to share a few things before we start, talking about this game. So as you can see, like my rating has suffered a little bit. I have lost around 30 rating points in the last few days, right? And the reason behind it is that, the way I think about it is that I feel that I was not analyzing moves or calculating moves clearly before I went ahead and played those moves. So I started using something like this, a simple notebook where I registered for each move whether I have, looked at least two candidate moves, calculated my opponent's response, and then played that move. So it helps me understand after, I go through the game, um, if I have actually made the right kind of analysis throughout the game before playing my moves. Um, so let's see how this goes. So I played d4. He comes with g6, right? And the idea is that he wants to develop the bishop here, get into a King's Indian defense kind of a structure. You can look this, opening up or this defense up in the database in Lead Chess or in chess.com. The idea is to develop the bishop here, the knight here, the king here, and then start attacking the center with these pawns, right? So it's called the hyper modern way of playing the game. Pretty similar to even Grunfeld. So I might be saying King's Indian defense. This might be a Grunfeld or transition into a Grunfeld later on. Um, so I go ahead and play c4. That's my normal move when I do play the Catalan. Um, he plays e6, right? This is a little new to me. I would have expected him to play the bishop here immediately, but he goes ahead and starts developing uh, the pawns. Maybe he's trying to have the option of developing the bishop here as well, but that will be really strange because then this diagonal will be really weak. So maybe he's looking to develop his queen out here. Not 100% sure, to be frank with you. Or maybe this is a prep move to play d5 and break in the center. That might even happen. Um, so I put my knight on f3, and you can see that he plays d5, something that I had anticipated. Um, I play g3, he brings his bishop out, and I put my bishop on g2. Now this pawn, as you can see, you know uh, is under attack. You can take it at any point in time. However, I have a very simple way to regain this. I can play my queen here, give you a check, and then um, take the pawn off, right? So after playing, say, the queen here, you can defend by playing the knight here, or the bishop here, or the queen here, or any of those moves. I can always take this pawn off. So um, there is absolutely no threat to this pawn at this point in time. Even if you take it, I have ways to regain it. So now he plays the bishop move here. So if you can understand what I just spoke about in the earlier move, right? So if I just castle here, right, he can take this. So the bishop now protects the king from this check, right? So say if I castle here, um, I just castle here, he takes this. I no longer have this move here to give a check and pick the pawn up. So I realized that, right? But I still went ahead with my castling because I felt that if you take here, I always have this knight move, right? And then it becomes difficult for you to protect anyways, right? Protect this pawn anyways. You have to play something like this, but that immediately makes the rook under attack if I just move this knight here. So if you try to imagine the board position at that point in time, this entire diagonal is open, right? So your rook is under attack, your pawns are advanced. So maybe the one way to defend is put your put your knight here, right? But then I can take, but then I can take back the pawn here. Um, so that was the idea, right? So yeah, I castle, you take, I take. You want to defend, the only way to do it is play something like this, or some, and then I can play uh, this move, and you want to defend. Um, if you play your knight, that's not defending it anymore. Uh, yeah, that's yeah. Maybe the next move then would be just push the push the other uh, pawn here. But I went ahead and played a castle, and he did not take. He just developed his knight. And now I'm thinking, what should I play? How should I go about it, right? And the moves that I considered, of course, I considered this move, right? Um, and I thought that after takes, right, um, this pawn is kind of solidified in the center, and that blocks the path of my bishop, right? I want this bishop to get really active on this diagonal, which should be difficult to do if I capture that pawn. So that's number one. Number two move that I considered was to play the knight up here, but then I thought he can take this and maybe hold on to that, right? Because immediately once he takes this knight and this bishop attacks this pawn, and once this bishop moves, this queen also attacks this pawn. So I would be tied down to defending this pawn rather than winning this pawn, right? Defending this pawn rather than winning this pawn. Okay, so that was the other idea why I did not play uh, that move. The next move that I considered was knight up here, but knight up here straight away loses this pawn to the two attacks here and the one defense here. I decided that I need to play b3, right? Because this, if you see, solves all the problems, right? So it solves the problem that if you want to take, I'll take back. So this pawn is defended. You can't take this at this point in time because my um, knight and my because my queen and my knight defend it, and I will quickly place my bishop here to defend this pawn as well. So I thought b3 was a good move at this point in time, and as you can see, I did not lose my advantage. So he plays that pawn up, and now I'm considering whether I want to develop my uh, knight up, my right away. Should I play my knight here, or the bishop coming here is the best move, right? So immediately I play the bishop here because that was my idea. Ki, let's develop the bishop, right? So I don't see a very good diagonal on this side of the board, or that or very good square on this side of the board that I can place my bishop. I don't want to place it in front of the uh, queen here because it blocks one of the development paths of this knight as well as path of the queen itself. I don't want to place it here because I want to capture the center with this pawn move. I don't want to place it here because at any point in time this will come under attack of this knight once it develops here and comes here. I don't want to place it here because again the knight can develop very quickly and then you can be attacked with this pawn here. So having said all of that, I felt that placing the bishop on this diagonal is a decent idea. So I do that. He develops his knight up, uh, and now I'm considering where to develop my one undeveloped piece, which is my knight. So I want to develop it here, or should I develop it here? And I thought that why not develop it here, right? Because this pawn is already defended by this pawn. So I don't need to defend that pawn with my knight, right? And this pawn is defended by this, sorry, is defended by this and this anyways. So even if I block my bishop, it's not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all, right? So I developed my knight up because I thought that look, he has pushed his pawn here, and his knight is here. So this square is pretty good for my, it's pretty good for my knight because you can't just very quickly push it back with a pawn move. Uh, and it does the job of controlling this square because I want to uh, you know, uh, develop my pawn up to e4 and control the center. So he takes here, and I take back. That was anyways the idea, and I have a decent control of the center already, right? And I thought the move that he'll play at this point in time is something like this, right? If he played something like this, he has this attack, this attack, this attack on the pawn, right? And at this point in time, I have to make a decision whether I would want to play something like this, play the knight here to start defending this, um, or even start by playing something like this, which is a little more aggressive, directly attacking, directly attacking uh, the knight here. But that don't think it works. Like he plays here, I play this move, he takes, I take, he takes, uh, and maybe at some point in time I can push this pawn and attack this pawn here with my bishop here. So it is not like super clear, right? So I was thinking, what will he do at this point in time? But he just castled, which gives me the amazing opportunity to capture the center. So I have three pawns in the center. And guys who are just starting off, right? If you can have like three pawns in the center, there's very little that your opponent can do. Think about this knight, right? Where can it go? It can't go here. It can't go here. It can't go here. It's blocked by its own pieces. The only square that it can go to is this, right? Think about this bishop, right? It can only come here. I can only come here, or it can go back, right? None of them seem to be like any useful moves. Uh, think about this knight here. You can't come here, right? You can't take this, right? You can come here, but then you'll be pushed, and then you have no square to go because again, from here, where will you go, right? You have to go here, or you have to go back from where you came from. That's the only option, right? And this bishop is pathetic. It's blocked on both sides of the board by its own pieces. So these three pawns in the center are a major fork in my opponent's throat, right? So he goes back with his knight because he wants to break in the center, I think, with pawn moves like this. This pawn move was blocked by his own knight. So as you can see, the computer already gives me a 2.7, 2.8 advantage, which is significant, right? And by the way, I am not any material up. The materials are completely equal. So I'm thinking at this point in time on what to play. What's the best move that I need to play? Um, and when I have my pawns in the center like this, right? I don't want to advance them because if you advance them, open squares where your opponent's pieces can go, and that's something I don't want. I don't want squares to give squares to my opponent, right? For example, if I play this, right? Think about this: bishop comes to life, right? That's one, right? Then he said he does not move that piece; he just takes. I have to take back, right? So I take back, and then the knight comes here. You don't have the pawn here anymore, right? So the knight becomes active as well. So you don't want to move these pawns unless and until there is a very significant reason to do so. So I play my rook to b2. Does two things, right? I think it was one of the best finds that I had in the position, and you will see how utilitarian this move is as we move through um, the game, right? This rook attacks this pawn, which is also attacked by my bishop here indirectly. Someday these things will move away, and you will attack this. It protects this bishop here. So if this diagonal ever opens up, this bishop is protected, right? And at certain point in time, if I feel like opening up the center, I would be more confident or prepared to do so because my bishop is defended, right? So he plays a preparatory move here. He also wants to save his pieces. He does this move, and At positions like this, you keep thinking, right, what to play? How do I make sure I know my position is good, right? His pieces are pathetic. I have this amazing control of the center. What do I do, right? So I play this move. I block his bishop. What do you do? Um, I completely block his bishop, um, and uh, and I did not introduce any. So I introduced one weakness, which is that your knight can jump here, but your bishop is blocked, right? So knight has some place to go. From here, he can't do much, right? It's not doing much, right? Uh, and your bishop is completely blocked, right? So what will you play, right? So he plays this move, and this move is immediately not that good in my opinion. So if I say, for example, take this, he takes this bishop, this pawn is loose and will fall at one point in time. I can just start attacking it with my queen, with my rook, and so on and so forth, right? And this bishop will be tied down, protecting this pawn forever. Okay, and also I can find a jump square for my knight here, right? It can be taken with by the bishop, but then you exchange a bishop for the knight, and by the way, I have my dark square bishop against your king, so exchanging your dark square bishop for a knight might not be such a good idea. But the computer here suggests a uh, very interesting move. It suggests knight up here, which is very interesting, right? Because if you take here, you basically are saying that by the way, I will place my knight here, and I have my bishop supporting this square along with my pawn here. So you can't get away taking this. If you take, I'll take with the pawn, and the pawn will stay here forever, right? Um, because yeah, that's the idea, which is interesting, right? Uh, but I took, which is not very accurate. He took with his bishop, and I think I opened up my bishop. So the idea with this knight move is to opening up this bishop to attack the rook on the other side of the board. So I knew he will protect with his um knight, right? You can't take this knight because you have this knight and this bishop protecting it, and you have only two attackers. So the first thing I do, I feel that the best thing to do at this position is to somehow take care of the bishop, because the bishop is holding the light squares on this side of the board. So I take care of the bishop, I take it out, and I had ideas to bring my even my queen here, threatening this, pushing this pawn, maybe opening up, opening it up further. Um, you know, I'm making him move this knight, and then pushing again. Uh, you know, which basically may attack one more piece or a pawn, and this rook in itself. So this happens in the game. So maybe just wait and watch. So I push the pawn, he takes the pawn, I take the pawn with my pawn, and now his um, knight needs to move. So his knight comes here, right? And I push again, right? And now the only way to save this knight and this rook is to play this, right? And now think about it, what's holding this knight together? It's held by a thread, right? You have to think about checks in the position. This king is super weak. Uh, so you can play something like this and pick up, and it comes with a check, and then you can pick up the knight here, right? There's nothing you can do to save the knight here, except for the fact that there's a knight here which protects the square. So a very natural, normal move here is to play something like this, which dislodges your knight. And then there is a simple move up the board, check, and then whatever you do, you basically lose this knight. And at this point in time, your opponent resigned. Little strange, in my opinion, because you know, uh, one piece is not always like, especially a one minor piece, is not always a very decisive advantage. In 30-minute games, with amateur players like us, um, you can have opportunities. You can have opportunities. So I would have continued for sure, for sure. Um, Even if I'm losing this piece, I'll probably make some king move. He takes it. I'll take it. He takes it, and then I win a pawn. So now you are just you know uh, a minor piece down for a pawn. So chalta hai. It's not super bad. It's not super bad. So yeah, so you can see the evaluation right here. There is one inaccuracy from my side, no mistakes, no blunders. I will credit a lot to the way I structured my thought process using my notebook. Okay, guys, I'll stop the video at this point in time. Hope you liked it. Take care. Bye bye.